What's up? It's your dude Tank Lip. Welcome to the Tank Lip Show. This is like episode 7 or some shit. Oh, mad tired today. So, we're gonna do the first blog. The first Tank Lip Show blog. We've done interviews, we've been singing songs. But since the inception or conception, whatever, of the Tank Lip Show series, we haven't actually done one of the infamous Tank Lip blogs, which some of y'all might call a rant. So I got some shit to fucking blog about today. Like, I'm on some mind fuck shit right now. Like, someone told me once, like, when you really getting mind fucked, it's when you're getting mind fucked and you don't even know you're getting mind fucked. Like, I'm not no sucker or a chump. Like, I'm calling out my mind fuck right now, and I'm basically telling my mind, I know you're fucking with me. Like, wait till y'all hear this story. This is like on some true shit. You could call this some Matrix shit. You could call this sign of the times shit. You could call this end of the world shit. Like, let me just tell this story. Like, I know what I want to tell you. I just don't know what twists and turns are going to take till I finally, like, hit y'all with the punchline and shit. But this is not some made up shit. Like, this is real life shit. Fucking Tank Lip world, like in the world that's mine. Like, y'all might be oblivious because you're not like in the same realm. Like, you're in your world, so how could you know? But like, everyone's in the macro world of things. Like, everyone's in their own little world. Well, my little world is on some big crazy shit, and like, I've been telling y'all this for a long time. But maybe this anecdote can give you like a snippet to like the fucked up shit I'll be on. Probably why I gotta be taking meds and shit just to keep myself calm from this fucking horror story and shit. So I do a bowling league, right? And I'm at the bowling alley, and there's, you got like fucking 20 something lanes. There's like 20 different teams with like 4 people on a team. So you're on a bowling league night, I'm interacting and shit with like, 80 to 100 different people and shit. It's actually a nice fresh breath of air, for my in the house shit, that I be caged in most of the time. So, a lot of these people irk me and annoy me, and I'm like, what's the cost here? Like, is it almost better to just be fucking cooped up on some, recluse shit, like in the house? Or is it better to try to mainstream and get normal again and be around people? But then, like, once I get around them, I'm like, maybe I was better off alone and shit. So this is one dude, like, for a good 2 years now, like on cigarette breaks and shit. Like, he's always talking to me. Like, I wonder, does this dude just like to hear himself talk? And I'm like just his muse and shit. Like, just someone to talk to, but he really just wants to hear himself. Because sometimes, like, actually most of the time, he gets on some random shit. And I'm a nice guy, so, I'm nodding along like, oh, okay. And then, I converse back with him and shit. Like, I get in his bananas shit. Like, he just be on some shit that, like, I normally wouldn't be able to relate to. But just as, like, a good conversator and a nice person, trying not to be rude, like, I try to go back and forth with him. So, this shit's been going on for 2 years. At one point, I was like, yo, maybe this dude, if he's spending so much time with me, maybe he's that quote-unquote enemy I've been trying to stay keen for and shit. I be on some paranoid shit. Always wondering, like, I must have if I'm so fucked up, I must have some enemy out there that's been somehow doing this shit to me all along. And, I had this theory like, eventually the devil shows his face type shit. Because, like once they beat you down, they like want to like taunt you and shit. Like, haha, I'm like the one that did this. Or they want to just observe, like, what's this masterpiece of torture they did. Like, I just had that theory about like a crazy or sick mind. Like, someone wants to hurt you. They're not just going to hurt you and then like fucking never come and see what they did. Like, they're going to spend all that time like hurting you. Like, their real joy and pleasure is getting to observe you while you hurt. So I've been on some crazy like theories and shit like that. And this one particular dude, like, he spends so much time with me at the fucking bowling alley. I never seen him before until the bowling alley and shit. Now he like my best friend, and I'm thinking it's just a little contrived. Like, our conversations are like so out of context. Like, they just happen so randomly. Like, most dudes are like, on a cigarette break and shit. Oh, weather's nice out there. Just talking about basic random shit that like anyone could talk to. But it's like this dude knew how my mind worked. Because for 2 years, he jumps into intricate shit. Like, I know I'm a smart dude. But, like, if he didn't know me, how did he know I was so smart? He'd be jumping into some Einstein shit. And it's like most people, I just know from experience, most people couldn't rock with some of this, crazy off-the-top conversations Cat be pulling out. I just know most people are very basic and don't like to get too deep. So that was even contrived to me. Like, how did this dude know me of all people that he could jump right into these fucking conversations and I'd be able to hang with him no matter how crazy this motherfucker got? So anyway, I'm not going to try to remember like on some shit that he, said in the past. Like, I'm just going to get on some shit from this week. Like, let me try to remember exactly how this came out, because this whole fucking story is just bizarre. But as bizarre and crazy as it is, it almost just makes sense to me. Like, there's something bigger going on here. So, oh yeah, we were talking about this week is, Passover and like Easter falling on the same day. I think Passover actually starts on Friday, and Easter or Good Friday is also on Friday. And we were talking about like how often does that happen? He gets on some, but the lunar calendar, that's why, sometimes it's like that and sometimes it's not, because we're going off the lunar calendar. I'm like, oh, okay, see where this shit's going. So, then he starts talking about, Antichrist and fucking Christ and like all in one. I'm like, then we start talking, briefly on some Jews and Christian shit, and he's telling me at the end of the day it doesn't matter, if we're all good. I'm like, it's just Passover and Easter. Why does it have to come down to, Jews and Christians are both getting into heaven? But he starts getting on some like everyone's getting into heaven type shit, which is cool. Like, I rock with that. Again, I don't see colors, so I don't see religions as you should be discriminating on who gets into heaven. I think it's like if you're good or bad. Like, if you live a good life, you're a good person, you get into heaven. But somehow this dude's like feeding into how my mind works, and he's dropping like all these riddles and shit, or just, things he's saying. Then he gets on some like Jeopardy shit. He starts like giving me pop quizzes. Like, what was the year that if you read it forward or backwards, it's the same year? Like, regardless of whether you read it, I'm like, I just quickly thought, I'm like 2012 or some shit. I thought, it had a bunch of twos in it. So obviously I was wrong. So he hits me with 1961. Okay. If you read it 1961, but then if you read it like upside down backwards, it's also the 61 becomes the 19, and the 19 becomes the 61, you know, whatever. So he's already got, like, I'm thinking, like shit like that gets me quill, you know what I'm saying? Like, when we start doing riddles, like, I'm the wrong one to do riddles with, because I, like, analyze everything. Like, you give me a word, just a word, I get heavy on it. Like, I mean, that's, like, kind of the nature of me being a writer and a rapper and shit. And what makes me actually good at being creative with that shit is because it's actually how my mind naturally works. I don't have to work too hard to be creative. My mind is naturally on some fucked up mindfuck shit. So now I got this dude that is, like, been notorious for 2 years. Like, he's on some crazy riddle shit. And, like, I think it's almost unhealthy. Like, forget the cigarettes being unhealthy. I think the dude is unhealthy for me to talk to, because he gets my mind revving in a way that I'm trying to, like, calm my mind down. And I noticed I did, like, biofeedback on myself a couple times after talking to this dude, and, like, I could noticeably see, like, I get more nervous after talking to this dude and shit. So then he jumps to, like, end of the world shit. Like, he's giving it 10 years till it's the end of the world. He starts quoting movies like Final Conflict, talking about Satan. He's like, you know, he's talking about 1979. They came out with the movie The Conflict, and they cut a scene, and he's just wondering, like, why did they cut that scene? Like, did they know something that we didn't know? Like, on some, like, you know, they didn't want to completely reveal, like, the end of the world to people, so they cut that scene. Like, he's really getting in this shit. Like, I'm not just giving my creative take on this. Like, this dude needed no help from me. He was really on his own. Like, his mind works like mine, except I think he even more fucked up than me. Like, he's getting on this shit. And then he starts talking about Freemasons, and, you know, there's different Masonic symbols. And one time in New York, he's sitting at a bus stop or a train station or some shit, and he sees one of these Masonic symbols, and he remembered seeing it in the movie Final Conflict, and he himself was thinking, oh shit, this can't be good, sign of the times. Like, someone knows something's, you know, he's thinking something's about to happen. But mostly, like, you know, he's really getting, like, just let's make this clear. Tank Lip is not a devil worshiper. Okay? I don't even know much about the devil, just except I interpret evil forces, like, all around me all the time. And I suspect that maybe the devil is a real entity. Although the same way we can't completely fathom what God really means, how could I also really fathom what the devil means? You know what I'm saying? If I haven't been there. And I got my own theories that I've been in hell, so maybe I actually do know the fucking devil or some shit. Because I think I'm doing some shit like a second time, like I already been in some real hell shit before, and maybe this is a more peaceful journey for me or some shit, since I had to be through that torture. Like, so, sorry, I'm like mind-fucking myself as I'm trying to tell you this mind-fuck story. Like, so he's really getting into some, like, Satan shit and talking about even Nostradamus. Like, a lot of Nostradamus predictions have come true and shit. And he's talking about Napoleon Bonaparte, and I'm like getting quill on that. I'm like, Bonaparte, oh yeah, that's not good when bones get apart. You know, I'm just like getting quill on every name he's dropping. Like, he's got my mind revving at this point. He's talking about Hitler. He's saying Nostradamus, 2 of his predictions already came true. Napoleon Bonaparte and Hitler. Except he says this, that Nostradamus called him Hissler. It wasn't Hitler, but then he's like, yo, but how close is that? Hitler and Hissler. So really, Nostradamus' prediction was predominantly, you know, manifested as like some true shit. So, you know, later on, like, I get on my computer shit. Like, again, I just analyze shit, I I take a word and I fucking read it up and down, backwards, forwards, all kinds of shit, and try to make other meanings into it. It's like, it's part of my brilliance, but it's also equally part of my sickness, because it drives me crazy. And then when I fucking get answers out of something most people just get a word from, then I really drive myself bananas. So the process of figuring stuff out drives me crazy. And then every once in a while, I actually come to something that in my crazy mind actually makes some sense. Like I can rationalize, like, oh shit, this is a sign, then I really go bananas. So for some reason, it didn't hit me quite as I'm talking to him, because I'm distracted by the conversation with him. But then when we like stray from each other, I go back in the bowling alley, you know, putting on my bowling shoes and shit. Like I'm thinking about the conversation. I'm having like flashbacks to the conversation. And for some reason, the Hitler thing keeps coming back. And I'm thinking in many numerous ways about it, but I start like analyzing the word. Like, okay, he said Hitler and Hitler's close. Like, okay, Hitler, he's talking about Satan. Sometimes we think of the devil or Satan as like a snake, quote unquote snake or something. And I'm like, I actually didn't have to work too hard. Like Hitler, I'm hearing hiss in that word. And he's talking about the devil, and I'm thinking, okay, this kind of makes sense, like snakes hiss. But then in part of our conversation me and this dude was having, you know, he's talking about Satan's actually born of a jackal, not actually of a person. Like he appears as a person, but he actually, or as a human being, he's born in like the human realm or flesh, but he actually came from a jackal. He's talking about it might have happened in the 60s or 79 or some shit, when the predictions are that Satan actually comes into the world and then rises through politics. Like he's getting intricate on some shit I hadn't even thought about. You know, then we talk a little about, you know, who in politics today could possibly be that Satan or something. Or is it just an evil collaborative force or some shit? So again, I'm back on, like, I'm thinking about how he said Hitler, and he's talking about Satan in the human form. And I'm thinking Hitler, snakes hiss, the devil's the snake. Like I'm getting real quill with it. Or maybe y'all would have been able to put all that shit together too. Or maybe you would have just, you know, not been thinking about it all. You would have been happy to get away from this fucking dude. So, you know, I'm thinking, what would be the human form of a snake hissing? Right? Because he's talking about, like, the devil can turn himself into anything. The devil could make himself an animal. The devil could make himself a human. You never, that's part of the whole shit, is you never really know, like, who's that devil or some shit. So now I'm on some sign of the time shit with him. And I'm like, well, if that evil force shit's going on, if that devil is real, I gotta be extra quill and be like real guarded, like think, you know, doing riddles on the side and shit. So like no one could ever sucker or chump, you know, tank lip and shit. And I've been on this like vindicate myself, like don't be no chump shit for a long time. It's part of what feeds my paranoia. Because if you don't want to ever be a sucker or a chump, you're always on some gorgeous shit type shit, real paranoid. Like to protect yourself so you never get chumped, and then you just live in like a paranoid existence.